Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media, St. Louis's home for arts, education, and culture.
That's our goal, is to help patients have better lives.
Really beautiful model of what interfaith dialogue can look like.
There was people like you that did this incredible and amazing thing.
Today on Spotlight, Mercy collaborates with the Mayo Clinic using innovative data science to transform patient care. Plus, a research farm combining a high-tech and age-old method of farming to help crops remain healthy. And then why hundreds of flags were seen on Art Hill and who they're meant to honor. But first, the History Museum commemorates one of the most difficult bicycle rides in history. It's Sunday and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
It's not often that we gather in Forest Park to celebrate the end of a 1900-mile bicycle ride. In fact, this has only happened twice, the first being in 1897 and the second in 2022.
We are here to commemorate the 125th anniversary of the Iron Riders, which was a group of Buffalo soldiers that rode bicycles from Fort Missoula, Montana to Forest Park, St. Louis in 1897. It originally came about because Lieutenant James Moss, who was the commander of the group, he was an avid bicycle fan. And he had the idea of trying to incorporate bicycles in military troop movements. It was to test the effectiveness of bicycles in military troop movements over horses. Horses can be shot out from under you, they can be noisy, they require food, water, shelter. And with a bicycle, all it is just making the necessary repairs and continuing on the journey.
With a segregated U.S. military, all black regiments were formed by Congress and eventually nicknamed Buffalo Soldiers. Of these regiments, the 25th Cavalry was responsible for the bike ride proposed by Lieutenant Moss. And so, having volunteered themselves for the task, 20 soldiers who fit the height and weight criteria were given a daunting assignment meant to measure the value of cycling against the standard horseback as a primary means of military transportation. Enthusiastic and ready to prove their strength and dedication in the face of judgment from white peers, these soldiers, under the direction of Lieutenant Moss, began a long-distance test ride starting in Missoula, Montana on June 14th and ending in St. Louis, Missouri on July 24th, arriving in Forest Park to a crowd of proud onlookers. Officially titled The Great Bicycle Experiment by newspapers, this journey took them through Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, and of course, Missouri. This trail was chosen in part because of the varied and challenging extreme conditions, climates, and landscapes that would adequately test the range of efficiency of transportation by bicycle. From thick mud to freezing temperatures to steep hills to excessive heat, these soldiers faced it all with just single-speed bikes and limited access to clean water.
Picture 1897, what those guys did. There's no roads. Okay, it was all mountainous. Okay, they had to ride on railroad tracks. But if people are perceiving a railroad track, there's gravel and stuff. There was no gravel there. They were just putting the ties down, the blocks down, and they were riding on that. They used to run through when it would rain, going over the mountains. It would rain. They called it gumbo mud because it was all mixed up with all the mixture. They had to ride on the side. They had to carry the bikes. They had somewhere close to 50 to 70 pounds. They were a little different. They were one speed. It was really a great experiment.
Despite the incredibly harsh conditions, these cyclists integrated themselves into the communities they stopped through.
It was very, very unique and very, very positive. It's not Black History Month. It's not Juneteenth. It's not any of those other, Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. It stands alone. It's part of Army history. Buffalo soldiers helped build this country.
These soldiers, while bonded through their time in the military, and particularly so while in the depths of the bike ride, were varied and widespread in their skills and interests.
Now, while they weren't riding bikes, they were fixing the fort, they were building roads, they were marshals, they played in a band. They even started baseball in 1894 up in Fort Missoula. Some of those guys wound up going into, later when they got out of service, into the Negro Leagues.
As significant as this event was, it remains unknown by many. which is in part why the Missouri state parks have made the commitment to spread the word and celebrate the achievement.
I had never heard anything about this until 3 years ago. So when I started working for Missouri State Parks 13, 14 years ago, when we came across this story, it was like, we have got to do this, because if I hadn't heard about it, there's tons of other people who hadn't heard about it. That's why it's important to get it out there, just to say, hey, there's people like you, or that look like you, that did this incredible and amazing thing.
Although the experiment ultimately ended with the military deciding against standard bicycle use, the endeavor shows the strength and courage of a group of Buffalo soldiers who accomplished a major feat. The arrival of the soldiers in Forest Park was a major spectacle that celebrated an accomplishment performed by Black American men. 125 years later, that day is being honored and reflected upon as cyclist Eric Cedinho journeys into town after retracing the steps that the soldiers took so long ago. Cedinho, known by many as the bicycle nomad, took on this great task as a way to pay homage to the soldiers' dedication. What a way to celebrate.
So I retraced the 1897 expedition of the Bicycle Corps. I've been a bicycle traveler, a bicycle explorer for about 13 years, and I've seen the whole country by bike. I've always been an explorer, and I loved history. So I wanted to know who were the first people that traveled by bicycle. And I came across the Bicycle Corps. And that just inspired me, because for the first time, I've seen people that look like me, but that traveled 125 years ago by bicycle. I definitely felt connected with each one of them, especially it's such a hard trip, physically, mentally, spiritually. There were some times that I'm like, wow, if I would not have been doing this, retracing history or paying homage to these guys, I probably would have left the trip long time ago. I probably would have flown home before Nebraska. That's how hard this trip was. What kept me pushing was like, those guys did it, and they dealt with harsh conditions. I mean, they just went through so much that I'm like, how can I just give up? These guys paved the way for me to be here. I have a son now. I want him to be inspired by these guys. These are explorers of colors that are not written in books. It's a U.S. history, but it's also to inspire the next generation of kids to dream.
Scan the QR code on your screen to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
I think you're in a good spot where I think you'd be reasonable to start doing weightlifting 2-3 times a week.
Doctors help patients decide what's best for them. More and more these days, decisions and predictions are backed by data science. The emerging field of big data analytics is now uniting two large healthcare systems, the world-renowned Mayo Clinic and Mercy, which is among the 25 largest healthcare systems in the U.S. Mayo Clinic and Mercy struck an agreement on a 10-year collaboration to combine healthcare records that have a vast amount of treatment outcomes and clinical data.
Really excited about this collaboration. It's really a first in industry where two large health systems collaborate on really finding the best care treatment paths for patients. So what we'll do is aggregate a lot of our data, de-identified. We'll never be able to identify individuals, but taking that data in aggregate and finding the best treatment paths and then rolling those out through really where all Mercy is, but also throughout the country and world. So these pathways will become the best standards.
Cardiologist Dr. John Mohart is president of Mercy Communities. Mohart says data science through the Mayo Mercy Alliance can start patients on a path to better health more quickly.
For too long, all the data has been so unstructured, so we didn't have a way to use it or utilize it to find out the best treatment paths, not just for rare disease and research, but for everyday treatment. You know, as a cardiologist, as a practicing cardiologist, I may only see a rare disease 5 times in my career, but boy, wouldn't it be nice to ask hundreds and hundreds of other cardiologists how to treat this, but to know that and have it delivered real time to the provider. So what we want to do is make that reliable and proactive and predictive.
That's for all medical conditions, and it's done through privacy-protected cloud-based technology using artificial intelligence and machine learning. The technology generates patterns to pinpoint disease earlier and identify best treatment options.
Find out those answers over weeks instead of years. Mayo Clinic has been a leader. Mercy as well has had the longest instance of a electronic health record of anybody in the country. So we have over 500 million unique patient encounters. So a huge data set.
Through the partnership, Mohart says patient care will become more personalized and proactive.
It would help with COVID or any other emerging diseases that we can treat with the right medicines quicker and know which ones work. There were all these anecdotal treatments that came out on COVID, and we didn't know if they worked because we didn't have data to compare it. Imagine if you had all this data and could say who does better based on this treatment or not, and have that readily available within Mercy or Mayo.
He says Mercy's and Mayo's vast electronic health records cover different populations and geographic locations.
We want to apply not just healthcare, but environmental factors, social determinants of health that impact people's health, and we have all that in a structured format. Together, that's our goal, is for the common good, to help patients in all the areas we serve to have better lives.
HEC Media, recognized, celebrated, honored time and again for excellence in the industry. HEC Media has been bringing home the hardware for over a decade. Arts and education to author talks, magazine shows and documentaries, individual craft achievements to overall excellence. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
We're standing on an academic field research site. That is the transition from research that happens, in this case, at the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center here in St. Louis, as the journey goes from a discovery to actually being in the food system and producing plants for the future. So the plants behind me represent a lot of questions on how plants interact with their environment and how can we position those plants and arm those plants to produce food better in the future as the climate gets less friendly and less predictable.
There's no more land being built. In the U.S., there's 198 million acres of row crops in agriculture, and that's not growing. And so we have to do better, grow more sustainably, and better food in the space that we have.
One way to do that is to integrate new technology into the age-old methods used in farming.
What exists today is technology, whether satellite, airplanes, and others, that actually look at your farms so they become the eyes of the plants that you grow. We use drones, so we have a very unique technology that goes inside the plants to find the outbreak of disease, pest, pressure, at the moment of outbreak, when that happens, when the growers care the most. We patented a method to actually essentially use a tether. It's essentially a selfie stick where the drone is flying above, but the cameras are off the actual drone, tethered, and that's how we lower it. Instead of actually having people walking the fields, we do that with robots instead of people. Between the plant, we lower a set of cameras and we take pictures of anything like the insects. When they actually happen, they first occur underneath the leaves, and that's where they kind of like harbor. The same thing with weeds. So where do you have weed pressure that matters the most? It's actually when the weed is very, very small. So you have to know that, and that you cannot know from above because you have the canopy, the crop itself. So you have to get inside to understand what's happening underneath.
That device, developed by Acre Technology, is called True Cause, and the information it collects allows farmers to assess their fields more accurately as well as efficiently.
I'm a farmer from Illinois. We raise corn and soybeans and wheat primarily. And we'll be looking at the fields a lot like we would be doing if we were out in them, but it's a lot faster way. There's some artificial intelligence here that can tag some of the images for us to be able to tell us exactly what to look for and focus our attention on so that we're very efficient when we're sitting in front of a computer and looking at it. And so it's going to be a lot more timely than actually going out and walking the field. You can cover a lot more acres.
The information that is collected by the sensor that falls off the drone is a sensor array, and it collects a number of agronomic things. The first, it takes pictures, and those pictures are translated using machine learning, artificial intelligence, into things that matter to the doctor or the agronomist. We also capture environmental information, temperature, humidity, CO2, O2, all kinds of things that are important to understand the variability of soil, temperature, and conditions that are important for the plant to thrive.
We're applying insecticides or fungicides or different nutrients to different areas of the field that need it versus areas that don't. And again, having it tagged spatially within that field, we can do a much more efficient job, so increasing our return on investment.
The hope is that in addition to helping individual farmers, the information gained through the use of this new technology will also give researchers the ability to design new and better crops that will help increase yield in light of changing climates throughout the world.
This research isn't impacting climate change, but it is very much impacting how plants will perform in that climate and understanding what levers we have inside plants, whether it's their architecture or their biological, physiological responses to the environment. So you get more data, which is going to let us improve crops better for their environmental performance, but also quicker.
The Arts and Faith Concert returns later on Spotlight. 2021 marked the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Flags of Valor St. Louis commemorated the event by placing over 7,000 flags on Art Hill to pay tribute to the United States service members killed in the line of duty since 9/11.
When you walk here, and once they put the dog tags up, what you hear is tinkle, 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 tinkle. It's haunting.
Putting up 7,582 flags for all the military that were killed after 9/11. You say 7,000 and you can't comprehend that number until you walk through the flags and realize every one of those is a man or a woman who died, left the family. It's just incomprehensible how many people, nobody can grasp that until they walk through these flags and realize that those were all people that had a future and decided to volunteer for the military service and protect this country. We have 500 volunteers that were part of putting the flags together. We did that on weekends all through the middle of June, all through the end of July. And so those same volunteers now are back here to put the flags up, and they will also be back here to take the flags down.
And the numbers and the dog tags are the most important part. The flags, straight up and down.
It's about perfection, not about speed. Think of it this way, that if you're the family member of someone that's fallen, you come to the hill, your flag doesn't look like the rest, you'll feel a little bit slighted. So let's make sure that we have them all perfect. Make sure that the flags are set up at the top, that they're straight and tight. Everything else is perfect. If it's not perfect, take it down and do it again.
Working with U.S. Special Forces in 2002, and been work all through those 16 difficult and hard years until September 2018. I'm helping people put the flags for those who lost their lives in Afghanistan. This is for me like I'm picking up my dead parent brother who lost their life. Then when I take this flag here, that means I'm hugging my dead brothers.
So she was the chief foreign disclosure officer sharing information with the Afghan military intelligence. And she was killed on May 20th, 2009, on her way to an intelligence sharing mission on the road between Kabul and Bagram.
She passed in 2006 in Iraq, 2 years before I was born, so I never got to personally meet her, but I've been able to hear stories, and everyone in my family says I look like her, so I often get called Amanda. I share the same middle name with her. I think it's an honor to be able to look at all these flags, because you look at these flags and you're able to know that the people here today, they have lost a loved one, and they're able to stand here and they're able to honor their memory, placing these flags out for all of these brave individuals who risk their lives trying to save our country and keep it the place that it is today, that we have our freedom.
My son was Specialist Jackson Johnson. He was killed in Kuwait March 5th, 2019. He wanted to serve his country. He wanted to do something to make the world better. It's a mixed emotions of heartwarming, of heartbreak, of honor, respect. It's just a mixed emotions, just as a Ghost Star mom, looking at every flag that is honoring every fallen soldier from 2001 till now.
Yeah, this means a lot to me. This reminds my fallen brothers, which we lost in the war in Afghanistan. And that means they will never forget, and no one will forget them. And they're always in our heart. Their place is here.
But there's so many more people that have risked their lives to keep this country the way it is, and the people should be grateful and they should honor those people's memories.
I want them to think of their freedom and what that means to them, and not just remember every fallen soldier, but remember all the military that's still out there fighting for their freedom and giving their all to protect each and every one of us around the world. It's not just about the fallen soldiers, it's about the ones enlisted and left behind to battle as well. But we just ask that people say their names. Remember them. Don't let their memory or their existence die away.
Go to hecmedia.org for the arts and authors,
Completely accidental because I never set out to write a book.
science and history, culture and community,
Considered to be the oldest organic farm west of the Mississippi.
education, films.
Finding the coin places the site firmly in the 13th century.
What's happening now around St. Louis and more. See for yourself at hecmedia.org.
Arts and Faith is an organization that brings together people of many different faiths to focus on arts activities in a way that we can think about the things that bind us together rather than the things that separate us.
Since 2011, Arts and Faith has staged an annual interfaith concert. Held each year around the anniversary of the September 11th attacks, the concert is intended to bring together the arts and cultures of different faith groups in the St. Louis area. In doing so, the concert provides an opportunity to build a stronger, more unified cultural and faith community. 2022 will play host to Arts and Faith's 12th Interfaith Concert, but this one is special. For the last 2 years, the Interfaith Concert has been a virtual event due to the global pandemic. This year, the concert will be live, on stage, in front of an audience. In its return to an in-person performance, Arts and Faith has chosen a new theme for the show, Faith into Action. And they have commissioned 2 new songs from composers Kim Portnoy and Stuart Chapman Hill the light of the divine, and all we believe.
The basic idea behind the song is this idea that the world that we live in makes it difficult for us to get in touch with that part of us. So how can we recognize the holiness or humanity in others if we don't recognize it in ourselves? So I hope that it'll just resonate with people and move people in some way.
There are many days we struggle to get through, our hearts too numb to move us to the work we're called to do. How can we love each other if we don't recognize in each living soul burns the light of the divine? It spoke to me immediately. It's got this energy about the light of the divine that calls us to do good things and to help each other and to be kind to each other.
The piece is called All We Believe, and in part it reflects all the different things that folks of different faiths believe, but it's also about all that we believe the world and society could be. So when you talk about the idea of taking faith into action, it's about envisioning what those steps of action can do to make a more just world, a more equitable world, a place where all people can thrive and feel safe and feel supported.
I thought it was beautiful. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. The message of All We Believe is simply beautiful, and it's timely.
We're not post-COVID, but we're at a point right now where most faith communities are really trying to figure out how do they move forward in putting your faith into action. And all our faiths demand that we be about our communities and not just about ourselves. And so one of the things that I know is going to be exciting about this year's concert is that our performers will have an audience. And lots of them have not done much performing in the period of COVID. And so I know that they're going to be very excited. I know as an audience member, I have not seen much live music in these last couple of years, and I just can't wait to be part of that experience.
To be back in front of a live audience is something that brings me to tears because it's so emotional to be able to sing in person with a live audience. So this is going to be huge.
Last year we were able to perform, but we were masked and we were only together one day. But this year we're back in action. We can all just be together and be people who love to sing.
I think this is a really important project for the St. Louis community and a really beautiful model of what interfaith dialogue can look like. I hope people will think about how the faith that they transform into action can help close that distance between us and all we believe.
The Arts and Faith St. Louis concert will take place live at the Sheldon on September 18th at 4 p.m. Tickets are free and can be found at artsfaithstlouis.org. The event will also be streamed at hecmedia.org. Next week, a story about a tragedy that is now looked at as a triumph. Plus, a St. Louis-born New York Times best-selling author who's inspiring young minds. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.